Hey guys, welcome back to the Ghost and Friends YouTube channel. Brandie and I are back trying to give you some winners this week because last week, a little bit of the opposite of that. We always talk about our good weeks. We talk about our bad weeks. So we will recap a nightmare week. 1-4 week for Brandie, 1-4 week for myself. Worst combined week I think we've had so far was 4-6. And we had like 5 or 6 straight winning weeks. And then the last 2 weeks we are a combined 6-14. So we will improve. We will move on. We are at 35-34 now. So that 60% mark. I'll blame myself for putting a jinx on us a little bit. 35-34. Brandie is 17-17. I am 18-17. Brandie, let's talk about your 5 games first.
Yeah, we'll start off with the one winner. Iowa minus 14.5 was, or minus 13.5, whatever it was. They were going to cover up to 30 something. They absolutely destroyed Northwestern and really took off in that second quarter and just like smashed them throughout the game. So that was really great to see. Syracuse plus 5.5 was probably my worst bet of the season. Variance finally caught up to Kyle McCord. He threw 5 or 6 interceptions, 2 of them being pick sixes. 2 of them being within, both of those being basically in the first like 10 minutes of the game. So that was kind of crazy. That was basically over with at the very beginning. And then I had kind of 2 bad beats. I had Vanderbilt first half plus 10.5. Texas covered minus 11. So that was kind of a little disheartening, especially because Vanderbilt started off the first quarter going up 7-0 off of an interception. So that one was really a tough loser, and I had to watch that one lose in person.
Watching it live, yeah, that makes it even worse.
Yeah. And then Alabama team total over 34.5, and they scored 34, got the ball to kind of drive down the field at the very end of the game. And then, of course, they weren't going to do what Drinkowitz would have done if the roles were reversed. And they didn't kick a field goal or try to score a touchdown or anything. So that also lost by 0.5 point. And then LSU plus 2.5 looked really, really good in the first half of the game. And I was really excited for them to kind of close it off and kind of go up big because they had multiple opportunities to, but missed field goals, botched field goal snaps, interceptions from Nuss in the second half. They just could never capitalize when momentum was in their favor. And that was kind of sucked. I was hoping for that upset and C-Stats. I'm sure you were as well, Ghost. So yeah, 1-4, but you know, it could have been worse.
Yeah, the thing is, like, you're gonna have weeks where you go 1-4 and you had a lot of plays that were pretty dang good. Vandy very easily could have covered that first half versus Texas. LSU fell apart in the last 25 minutes of that game. That was hard to watch. And so, yeah, I mean, those 2 games and the Alabama team total, 1-4 very, very easily could have been a 3-2 or a 4-1. So Brandie still leads our big group. He still deserves your trust. It's 1-4. Me, on the other hand, I get if you'd be a little hesitant. My 1-4 was not as pretty, if that's such a thing, as Brandie's 1-4. Friday night, USC minus 13 takes care of business with Rutgers. Not really much of a sweat in that one. And I'm off here, to a good start, thinking we're about to go, 3-2, 4-1, put out another winning week, and then Saturday happened. Mississippi State. I think Taylor Green just scored again for Arkansas. They get blown out, give up 40 plus. Michigan State has a chance for the backdoor cover late in that game, +4, driving down the field inside the red zone. Can't get the ball across, stall out, lose by a touchdown. So the second loss. Washington +6.5. I thought they would show up and give Indiana a game. A really bad start for those guys. They kind of settled in, gave up a late score. Actually played pretty good from the second to early in the fourth quarter, but yeah, they don't nowhere close to covering. And then the late night, Nevada absolutely lays an egg in Hawaii. That did surprise me. I'll be honest. I thought they'd show up. That was my favorite play I had. I thought guys would show up. So Nevada will not be chosen again this season. They are now on the bad list. We'll keep it PG. But hey, we've addressed it. 1-4, 1-4, 2-8 combined. Still overall winning on the channel. But it's time for a big week. So, Brandie, what do you have as your first play, ma'am?
Yeah, my first play of the weekend is going to be Clemson minus 10.5 at home against Louisville. Clemson has been absolutely incredible against the spread this year after their first game where they got just blown out by Georgia. They really have kept the ball rolling. Like Cade looks really good on offense. And of course, their running back who's been there for a while, he looks really great too. And their defense has started to improve a lot over the season. And I think they're a real contender to go far in the playoffs this year if they keep playing the type of football that they're playing. Louisville, I can't trust their defense enough here. I think that they have a little bit of a spark on offense with Ja'Cory Brooks, but they had to come back against Boston College on a Friday night game this past week. And Boston College is not a good football team. And they had to come back from like 2 scores down against them to be able to win that game. And so
Yep.
and their third down offense, Louisville's third down offense is horrible. I think they converted less than 50% of their third downs that they had on offense. So I think Clemson's defense steps up big in this game, and they get a pretty decent win at home and continue blowing out opponents. I know last week was a little sketchy in that fourth quarter for Clemson against Virginia, but I'm not too worried about it. That kind of thing happens. They played a little sloppy at the end of that game. I don't expect them to do that against Louisville, especially knowing that Ja'Cory Brooks is on the sidelines and that they came back this past week. So Clemson minus 10.5.
I love it. That you have several strong plays on your card. Might be my favorite. Clemson's playing really, really well, and a lot of people wrote them off after Georgia, and then even after they won a few games, they still have the Georgia game on the mind. And so, my bad, guys. I didn't even have the chat pulled up. Good call, Gage. Definitely still her picks. Yeah, Clemson minus 10.5. I'm a big fan of that. Louisville's been giving up a lot of points. They haven't really been protecting the football. Clemson much, much better defense than Miami, who Louisville scored a lot on and kind of backdoored in that game. But I like the Clemson pick a lot. Solid. My first play, North Carolina minus 2.5. Florida State no longer have a shot at bowl eligibility. Carolina finally ended their win streak last week and did so in impressive fashion for those guys. Quarterback seems to be getting a little more comfortable. He had a season high passing last week, but mostly it's just a fate of Florida State and questioning the motivation that they might not have now that bowl eligibility is gone. I mean, they're 1-7. I mean, they're a bad football team. North Carolina sitting at 4-4, still a spot to get in. And Mac Brown has never beat North Carolina in his career. I saw that stat today. I think that's kind of funny because he was at Texas for forever and never played them. So this is dating back to his Clemson days. Not Clemson. I'm thinking Rick Barnes. Wow, shout out. Taking those ACCs. But no, Mac at North Carolina in his first stop and now his second. I don't know. I think North Carolina can win this game by 10, 14, running away almost. How about you, Brandie? You fading the Noles?
I'm always down to fade FSU. I think I've picked them maybe once or twice in the Pick'em League this season. I think I picked them against I think it was Duke and maybe one other team, and I was like, I'm always down to fade them. Like they didn't cover. They covered one time, I think, when I picked them against Cal, and they haven't covered since. So I'm always down to fade Florida State. Their defense is like kind of okay, but like they have like no pulse on offense. There's just absolutely nothing. No sense of life for that team at all.
Which to me
and
makes
there's like nothing that shows like that they're even going to show anything. I mean, even last weekend against Miami in a rivalry game, they got blown out. So if they can't get up for that, they definitely can't get up for UNC.
Yeah, and Miami's been giving up points to everyone. And so, yeah, I think they'll play a lot of younger, inexperienced guys trying to find something. And so North Carolina was still something to play for. I feel good about them covering the 2.5. What do you have second play on your card?
Second play, I'll keep it in the ACC. I have Duke plus 20.5 on the road against Miami. I saw this line and I was like, that is just absolutely absurd. I get it. They just had an emotional loss to SMU. But they have a really solid defense. They kept SMU to 21 points in regulation before that game went into overtime. And that's a really electric offense. I was shocked that their defense kept them to that little of points. And also there's the Manny Diaz factor. Manny Diaz, or not Manny Diaz, sorry. I don't know. You have me with UNC. I was like, oh my gosh. So basically I think that this line is just way too long. Last week, the FSU Miami line was like 21.5, 22.5. And this Duke team is not 1.5 to 2 points better than that Florida State team, in my opinion. So I really like Duke here. I think that this could be a close game in the first half. The way that Cam Ward plays football really leaves it open for this Duke defense to possibly put a little bit of pressure on him and create a turnover. And so we really haven't seen Miami be taken down to earth and humbled yet, like we have a lot of top teams in the country. And I think they're due for a humbling. I'm not saying Duke's going to win outright by any means at all. But 20.5 to me is just too long for a defense that I think is really competent, and that's their true identity. They don't have much going for them on offense, but they know that, and they know what their strengths are. So Duke plus 20.5.
I like it. North Carolina, sorry. Stuck on that game. I struggled with opponents less talented than what they'll does have a good defense. I think they'll be very disciplined. Stopping Cam Ward in the run game will be key here. I feel like they'll do a better job on it than most. Should have been there. Dang it. But yeah, so I like to do pick a lot. I just like that. It's just too much. I would have thought, maybe 13.5, 14.5 somewhere. I can definitely see Duke hanging and being down a score, maybe 10 points going into the fourth quarter or late in the third in this game. I like it. I'm a fan. Go Duke, which is odd to say for me. My second play, and we're going back to the wagon. One of the losers from last week, Washington, who let us down. We're going to take them. We got it when it was at 3. USC is 0-4 on the road. Washington is unbeaten at home. It's like prove to me that you can win a game away from the Coliseum over there, Lincoln Riley and USC. But no, like I said, Washington played pretty good there for about half. They just had a gross start to that game, and then they're chasing points at the very end, forcing the issue a little bit. I think their defense steps up, plays a lot better. A very, very good pass defense, number 1 in the country as far as yards per game allowed. Run defense is middle of the pack, but USC doesn't particularly run the ball well enough to take advantage, in my opinion. And so I'm like literally repeating the notes that I sent over to Brandie earlier, word for word almost. But no, I just Washington at home. USC has been so bad. I mean, even it took a really struggling Rutgers team for USC to run away from anyone. And so give me Washington at home. I think there's a good shot that they win this one outright, but I'm still just going to hang with the +3.
I like it. I think this Washington defense is legit. Like, they're pretty good. And USC's offensive line continues to reel. Like, they're just not good. And it's hard to trust that USC team right now too. They're 4-4. Maybe they should be 5, and maybe they should be 6-2. Maybe but they have really fallen off. And I also think it's kind of like a little bit of a tough place to play. The Husky Stadium is too. So I like it. I can definitely get behind it.
Yeah, I hate rooting for Washington, but here we go. 2 weeks in a row. They owe us after last week. Belichick will have those guys ready. I like it. All right, so we should be on third play. What you got, Brandie?
All right, I'm going to keep with the theme there, kind of a team in a bounce back spot too. Navy on the road, -11.5 versus Rice. I get it. They just got blown out, absolutely steamrolled, embarrassed by Notre Dame. There were so many mistakes that were made in that game by Navy. I think Notre Dame, though, is a legit team. I think them beating Texas A&M at the beginning of the year is a testament to that, too. That's the best team that Navy has played, but their playoff hopes kind of are still alive a little bit. So I'm not really fully ready to give up on this Navy team because I still do think that they have a really strong offense and a pretty decent defense. Rice, like their offense is non-existent. They have played a couple of teams close, but there's just nothing that's super inspiring about it. And Navy's going to be pissed off from what happened last week. And there's been so many teams this year that have gone out there and covered, even on the road after just horrible losses that they've had. Ole Miss on the road at South Carolina, for example, earlier this season. So I really like Navy here in a bounce back spot. Navy minus 11.5.
I like it. I mean, things just kind of snowballed for them last week. They get down early. Obviously, they're not built to play from behind. None of the military schools really are. But like you said, the playoff hopes aren't dead completely, and so it's time to show up. And I expect them to win pretty comfortably. I like that pick. I'll be telling it. I'll be telling all of the picks that you've set out so far. And as Mr. Cook just said, Rice just fired their coach. Rice is really, really bad. They let Connecticut cover almost a touchdown spread last week up there in Hartford. So there you go. Go Navy right there, brother. Thank you for your service. Greg, hey, just a heads up, you guys, I don't know if it's showing your comments when I put them on the screen. I've had people DM me today. Our comments are not showing up, and so I apologize for that. But we're trying, Durag. Even you, Mr. Joe Cook. Congratulations on a big week in the Joe. We were talking about that earlier. So yeah, Brandie, so far you have Navy minus 12.5. You have
Navy minus 11.5.
11.5. Okay, go ahead and tell me your two other quick. Should be right.
Clemson minus 10.5 and Duke plus 20.5.
Okay, just catching you guys up. Clemson minus 10.5, Duke plus 20.5, and Navy minus 11.5. My third play, we are going to go back to the Big Ten. We're going with Minnesota minus 3, playing Champaign against the Fighting Illini, who looked awful last week, by the way, playing in Eugene. And I like this Illinois team. I like Brett Bielema. I like Luke Altmaier. I like what they have. But I like PJ Fleck. I like Mr. Brosmer. I like the backfield that the Gophers have a lot. I'm a fan of the way they've been playing ball. Not as well as Clemson, but I feel like no one's kind of talking. They're going for their fourth win in a row. Ever since kind of like the third quarter in Michigan when Minnesota trailed a lot on that week, they've like really stepped up and playing pretty good. They're 2-0 when we've told them on this channel. I think they have enough offense. They'll play well enough on defense. Injury concerns for Illinois at wide receiver, and I am trusting PJ Fleck. They're going to row that boat. I think they're saying DIB or something, DIB or something, which is do it better now, some other gimmick. But hey, we're trusting it. PJ Fleck, the Fighting Gophers, minus 3 against Illinois. Brandie, is that silly?
No, I like it. Illinois did not look good, especially in the first half. They kind of limited Oregon in the second half, but Oregon also kind of just stepped off the gas there. I get like wanting to back a home dog in Illinois, but I think that Minnesota's really, really started to hit their stride. Illinois is kind of a little bit fraudulent to me too. They have a better record than Minnesota, but I don't think that they're the better team. We all remember when Ghost was on Illinois big time against Purdue, and Purdue came back and I think they sent that game into overtime.
Yeah.
And Purdue was horrible.
Horrible.
So yeah, I like the Gophers to keep it rolling here on the road.
Yeah, and I had a little concerns in finalizing this in because of the second half that Illinois played last week with Oregon. You know, Oregon didn't do much, but at the same time, if you go back and look at the last 3 or 4 Oregon games, they just like stall out after half. They're like, we'll get ready for the next opponent. We're gonna run clock. Because of that, I was like, okay, we can stomach this. Go Minnesota. Minnesota minus 3. Brandie, what do you have as play for, ma'am?
Play for, I'm going Memphis minus 7.5 on the road at UTSA. If anybody kept up with UTSA this past weekend, they just had a really emotional game that they lost against Tulsa. I still don't know how Tulsa won that game. But Memphis also had an emotional win this past weekend too. They gave up 21 points in the fourth quarter this past weekend. Charlotte, I believe. They still ended up winning the game. They only have one loss on their record this year. That's to Navy. But I still really, really like this Memphis offense. I like their quarterback a lot, and I think that they have a good run game. And UTSA's defense is just horrible, and I think that we've continued to see that throughout the year. So I really like Memphis in this spot. I think Memphis does have a little bit of not playoff hopes necessarily, but like their eyes set on potentially competing for the Americans still, even with that loss to Navy. So this game I think is really important to them. Yes, it's on the road, and maybe 7.5 isn't a key number, but it's college football, so I don't necessarily care about key numbers all that much. I think Memphis steamrolls UTSA because of how bad their defense is. So I like Memphis on the road, -7.5 to cover against UTSA.
Yeah, I like it too. I could easily see Memphis winning this by 2+ scores, running away early, and then just kind of maintaining a 2-3 score lead. UTSA doesn't have the firepower offensively to hang with Memphis, and like you just said, their defense is bad. So I like that a lot. Memphis -7.5, lock that in. Big fan, to be honest. I might do more with that one. My fourth play, and I hope Durag is still in here. I hope Joe Cook is still in here. Other Aggies we got hanging in here. I hope y'all are still fans after the South Carolina money line is my final play. Brandie has 5 plays tonight. I only have 4. South Carolina money line. I think a lot of people, and I told Brandie earlier, it's hard for me to talk about A&M football right now without being bitter, and it's not that. It is a somewhat of a love affair for Shane Beamer and that defensive front 7. I think that they are going to find ways. I love you, Joe. Thanks for hanging around. I think they'll find ways to make Marcel Reed throw the football. A lot of people are really high on Marcel. I get that. He was fantastic. He did look a little like Lamar Jackson running around in college last Saturday night at Kyle Field. I think South Carolina on the bye week will do enough schematically to find some points against A&M early in this game. I think they kind of jump out to they hang on for dear life. I like Marcel Reed. As I told Brandie, he may be the truth, but not convinced yet. So with the front 7 of South Carolina, with Lenore Sellers finally being of health, and the bye week being a big thing, A&M coming off a big emotional, hard-fought win, dominating that fourth quarter. I'm not going to call this a letdown spot. I'm just going to say South Carolina is due for a big home win. I said it on the channel the other night. They should have had LSU. They let them off the hook. The Sellers injury helped there. They laid an egg versus Ole Miss, and South Carolina fans, 2 weeks after the LSU game, they had a bye week in between. They showed up flat off the bye week. I think that it'll be a point of emphasis. There we go, Mike. Talk that trash, baby. Point of emphasis for South Carolina to go up, start big early. I don't know if they'll start as hard as they did the last time that the A&M Aggies visited Columbia. I believe that Xavier Leggett ran the opening kickoff back for a touchdown for South Carolina. It would be cool to see that. So, yeah, I'm rolling with it. I'm not even taking the 2.5. I'm taking the money line. Let's go, Cox.
I like the 2.5 for sure. I think the best comp for this game is probably Alabama, South Carolina, when South Carolina had a chance to win that game because Marcel Reed plays a similar-ish style of football to Jalen Milroe, a quarterback who uses their feet a lot, especially the way that Marcel does. Marcel's much faster than Jalen Milroe. But South Carolina has a pretty solid defense. And yes, their defensive front gets talked about a lot, but I actually think they have a really solid secondary group too. So I like it. I'll call it a letdown spot. I mean, I feel like Texas A&M just had one of their biggest wins on the season at home with all eyes on them. And you see this happen kind of all the time where teams are just like in this like letdown kind of spot, like Bama losing at Vandy, for example. They had a crazy win at home over Georgia, which is their biggest game of the season. And then they go on the road at Vanderbilt and lay an egg. So I'm calling it a letdown spot, even though you won't, Ghost.
I like it. I battle with Aggies on the timeline every day in a friendly manner. And so I'm just trying to cover myself a little bit. I do think they lose. I feel pretty good about that. My Aggie friends know that I all I don't know. I mean, I don't know why I was so high on them in the Jimbo Fisher era, but like I know we didn't get connected until recently, Brandie, but I would do team predictions for Oklahoma, Texas, all the Big 12 schools, a couple of SEC schools, and I had them like 10-2 in 2023, and then 10-2 in 2022, and then I had them like, I don't know, last year I had them winning double-digit games again, and so they just think that I'm like trying to jinx them or curse them or whatever it is. So when I pick against them, they're like, their ears raise up and they're like, oh shoot, like he's actually picking against us. And so I feel good. I feel good about it. South Carolina is going to take care of those guys. The end of the SEC year is about to be bananas. I don't know if I'm built for the craziness. It's about to go down. But before we get all to that, we'll talk about a couple of the bigger games for this week. Brandie, you have your last play to give out. What do you have, man?
Yeah, I'll keep it in the SEC. Florida plus 16.5. The world's largest cocktail. They won't call it that anymore when they're calling the game, but this is a game that's played on a neutral site every year. Both Florida and Georgia coming off bye weeks is usually what happens in this game. I think that Florida is going to be getting better under DJ Lagway. The bye week is definitely going to benefit them. I actually really like this Florida defense too. I think they're pretty solid. The biggest weakness for Florida is Billy Napier going to make good coaching decisions or not, because they should have won at Tennessee on the road. But Georgia has played most of their opponents really close this season. Mississippi State covered, Auburn covered. When they played Alabama covered, obviously. I'm not going to mention the game that Georgia just covered in, but either way, like Georgia just hasn't been blowing out opponents usually as of late, or this season, besides the game that happened a couple weeks ago. But they really haven't. Yes, this Georgia defense is good, and yes, DJ Lagway is a freshman quarterback. I get it. But Florida's having a little bit better of a season with a really tough schedule than I think a lot of their fans realized. And their fans are still going to show up. Doesn't matter what type of season that they have. But 16.5 to me is just too much in a rivalry game that's always played at a neutral site with somebody who I think is going to be a future star in the SEC and DJ Lagway. So,
yeah, that's the thing, is like there's not really too much tape out there on DJ. And so he could still surprise Georgia, to an extent, even though a lot of people know about his capabilities. Yeah, Joe, I'm worried about every game we play, man, the way our offenses line and penalties have been lately. But Florida's much better than people anticipated them being. I, for one, kind of said before the season that if they struggled early, they might quit on Billy. They might kind of fold up, but it doesn't appear to be the case. I hate to say an injury is like a blessing of any kind, but I mean, now they have to play DJ and they're not flip-flopping. I know Mertz was injured early in the year, and that's kind of why they got DJ out there regardless. But shout out Willis, Texas. Thank God he's not an Aggie, is all I'll say, even though Marcel does look pretty good. Lagway much further developed as a passer. I would love for Florida to get in there and hang with Georgia, shock the shin. But yeah, I think they get inside of 16.5. That offense for Georgia has not like blown me away. Even when they whipped our tails, it wasn't because of their offense. They put together one drive that was over 50 yards, if I'm not mistaken. Florida plus 16.5. They won't call it the world's largest outdoor cocktail party on the broadcast, but they'll sure air about DraftKings and FanDuel right after that and everything else. So it's kind of funny how it is. But yeah, so Brandie saw plays. Clemson -1.5, Duke plus 20.5, Navy minus 11.5, Memphis bouncing back -7, and then the Florida Gators covering against the number one team in the country plus 16.5. And then I have North Carolina minus 2.5 against stinky North Carolina or stinky Florida State. Washington plus 3 because Lincoln Riley cannot win a true road game. Gage did point out that they beat LSU in Vegas earlier. Minus 3 in Champaign, and then South Carolina's money line. Has 5. I'll go ahead and we'll do leans. One of my leans is in one of the bigger games, and then we'll talk about some of the bigger games. Go ahead and give me your leans, Brandie.
Before I give you my lean, we did go 3-0 in our leans last week. I gave out 2. Ghost gave out 1. I don't think either of us have lost a single lean this season. So while our official plays last week were really bad, if you put money on the leans, hopefully that made up
Which we
for
did
it.
tell to do. We did tell people last week. We were like, we always win our leans. So like, hopefully people listen and don't hate us as much. But yeah, go ahead.
Right. And one of my leans last week was Boise State -2.5. So just want to say shout out Ashton Genty. He's not the favorite to win the Heisman right now, but I still believe and still think he can do it. So my lean this week though is Army -22.5. I got to go with the service academies. They have just been rolling. And Army's coming off of a bye week, I believe, this week as well. So I love the air raid offense that Army's been running. And I just think that even though this is a really long line, like I'm not really worried about it because Army's at home. They're playing against Air Force. So I guess a little bit of a rivalry, but Air Force's offense is really, really bad. Like it may be worse than Wyoming's possibly, even though they've played earlier this season. They're just a really bad team. And I could see Army getting after it pretty early against them too. Going out there, making a statement, especially the week after Navy lost too. Navy had a similar line against Air Force this season. It was around 21.5, something like that. And they covered pretty easily against Air Force. So I think Army's a little bit better, especially on the offensive side of the ball. So Army -22.5.
I like it. I think they roll. Do you have any other leans outside of Army?
It might be the same as what your lean is on the big game. So I'll let you give out your lean first before I potentially give out another one.
Know how this is gonna go. Is it in the Ohio State Penn State game?
It is, but I want to hear what you have to say because we might agree.
Oh man. I like 2 things in this game. Okay. So I'm hoping that we at least agree on one. I love the under, and I really like Penn State. I am not sold on Will Howard in big games. Will Howard talked earlier this week about how excited he is for this game, how ready he is for this game. He is from Pennsylvania. He grew up a Penn State fan. A lot of bravado. He seemed gassed up, and to me, I'm not buying it. I don't see it. I don't even buy that Drew Eller might not play in this game. It's slowly trended to him being a game time decision after earlier in the week. A lot of people saying he wouldn't play. Penn State's defense finds a way in a very low scoring game. In my opinion, I like Penn State plus the 3.5. This line is kind of odd to me as well. It opened up at 5.5, quickly jumps to 3.5, even with the news about Aller and Penn State. Thank you, Matt, for checking in right there with that update. And that is weird to me. Like that line moved towards Penn State, even with this injury news. I like Penn State. I like Penn State in a very low-scoring game. I think defenses dominate this one. This is a huge game, a massive game, especially for Ohio State, who still has Indiana left. You lose this game, and there's no guarantee 10-2 gets you in the playoffs with the way that the Big Ten is kind of shaping up because you still have Oregon undefeated, State undefeated, and Indiana, the feel-good story. So now tell me that you have Ohio State -3.5, so these guys can run in there until the Penn State bets they're putting in right now.
I don't. I actually am backing you on Penn State. And not only did Will Howard grow up a Penn State fan, Drew Aller grew up an Ohio State fan. But Will Howard didn't get an offer from Penn State, and he had like a little bit of a bad taste in his mouth from that. But none of that matters whenever the game is ready to kick off. So one, I think Aller plays. I know right now they're saying he's a game time decision. I think that's a little bit of gamesmanship. I think this is a game that Drew Aller's had circled for a really long time. He wants this probably more than his head coach wants this. I know you've kind of shitted on them this season just because they're not necessarily like a fun offense to watch, but I really like the tight end sets that Penn State runs on offense. And I think that they've continued to improve throughout the season there. Ohio State's offense, like something is off about it. The run game has really been off these last couple of weeks. Like Quinshon Judkins did not play that great against Nebraska last weekend. Maybe Ohio State was in a little bit of a look ahead spot last weekend when they were playing Nebraska, but that is not that great of a football team, and that game should not have been close. So Yeah, I really like Penn State here as well, and especially like a home underdog. Like we've seen so many big time matchups with playoff implications on the line where there are home underdogs that continue to cover and win outright. We saw it this season when Georgia went on the road at Alabama, and Alabama was a 2.5 point underdog at home. We saw it when Ole Miss went on the road at LSU and Baton Rouge, and LSU was a 2.5 point underdog. So these teams are, and we saw it when Ohio State went on the road at Oregon, and Oregon was a 2.5 or 3.5 point underdog at home. And so, yeah, I don't know. I'm all for a home underdog in a short line in a really, really big playoff implication type of game this season. I like it.
I'm with you. I will say I'm disappointed in their offense. That's why I've been hard on them. With the new OC and the way they looked against West Virginia, I was like, dude, this offense has life. This is fun to watch. And then it seems like they kind of reverted back to some of the old mess that they've been doing the last few years with Franklin and Allard there, even with the new OC hire. But they get on. This is a weird matchup because it's two teams who can't win a big game for the life of them. Coach Day, Coach Franklin, like somebody has to win this game. I'd much prefer it be James Franklin than Ryan Day. Ohio State is not fraudulent, but Ryan Day as a head coach, I still have many questions about. And so, big time game. Will Howard on the road with, I don't know how many Penn State fans fit into that stadium, but I'm sure it's 100K, and it should be a wild one. But even, with 3.5, I mean, Ohio State can walk this off late in the game with a field goal, and we still cover, and it's all the same to us. But exactly, that's what I'm saying, Jim. But go look at what Ryan Day does. He's not a lot better.
Both of these coaches are like known for laying eggs in big games.
Last year, I backed Penn State when they played Ohio State. I think we were getting 7.5, and they looked so dang bad offensively. So a little bit nervous. That's why I didn't put this one officially on the card. It is a lean, but like you just heard, our leans dominate. They win. So Army -2.5. I like the under here, and I like Penn State. Brandie backing me up. That's the best news I've had all week. I was really afraid she was about to say, hey, Ohio State -3.5. That's the move.
I can't back them as favorites on the road anymore after I took them against Oregon, and can't even I just always see that play at the very end of the game running through my head. Just horrible. It was just horrible. And honestly, Ohio State should have lost this weekend to Nebraska.
I wish it would have for you out there, Matt. I know you're watching. Okay, Brandie, any other games of relevance that are worth talking about in your opinion? And then we have Oregon at Michigan. I think that's only kind of relevant because Oregon's the number one team in the country. What else do we have out there? What's in the SEC country?
I don't know if this is a game worth talking about, but I feel like Iowa State isn't getting enough national or just in general chatter about them, and they've been playing really well. I'm really interested to see how they play at home this weekend against Texas Tech. I think it's going to be a really fun game. Iowa State actually has had a pretty decent defense this year, surprisingly. I'm excited for that game. I don't really have a lean on it or anything, but I think that's a game that's going to be a good one to watch this weekend. Yeah, I don't know. Do you have any viewpoint on that game at all?
This is a troll. Brandie knows about Tech and my affinity for them, and these last 2 weeks, I've just kind of been like, you know what? I never picked Tech to win the Big Five. That never happened. No, it definitely seems weird for Tech to be giving up 13.5, but the secondary has been so bad. The DC is under a lot of fire up there in Lubbock right now. Fans are kind of getting tired of the old school zone blitzes. Shut up, Gage. I love you, buddy. But Tech has really let me down last week. I thought they'd find a way to win that game. So I don't know. I have no idea what to expect with them. I didn't expect them to give up almost 60 points to Baylor. And so, like you said, Matt Campbell, Iowa State, they traditionally have pretty good defenses, at least for the Big 12. This year seems to be a little bit better. Now, offensively, it seems like anyone can score on Tech right now. And that's where Iowa State has always had question mark, especially at the offensively, but especially at the skill positions. They seem to be a little bit better. Don't seem to have any athletes involved in any betting scandals or anything of that nature. So yeah, I like Iowa State in this game, just because Tech has not shown they can stop anybody. And then, as Brandie said, that Iowa State defense is pretty good. But it's a test for Iowa State, no doubt, because Tech's O-line is good. The receiver probably average. But obviously, you got Taj Brooks, Baron Morton, which Baron Morton got hurt. So that's probably why this line is as fat as it is. Will Hammond, the freshman from Hutto, Texas, has been taking the snaps there for Tech. And so, yeah, I would need to look into Baron Morton's health. If Baron Morton is not playing in this game, I honestly would jump all over the Iowa State and the points, giving up the points. But I hadn't checked on that Baron Morton's health. If Morton plays the total of 56.5, I would feel really good about that going over. I think you brought that up, but if anyone in the chat knows if Baron Morton's healthy, let's see here.
I don't know. I just tried to look it up.
It says likely to start 24 hours ago. So hey, if Baron Morton's playing, depending on health, I mean, over might be the first play I look at there, but
yeah, I think I was looking at the betting the over in that game, possibly. I think it's like 56.5 or something like that.
Matt Campbell, he runs an umbrella defense, the deep safety. He wants to bait you into running the ball and then letting his hybrid linebackers and safeties just kind of rally. I don't know if they can do that with Tech. Tech will dink and dunk it down the field, will grind Taj Brooks. I'm not saying I like Tech to cover. I just think there will be because Tech, I don't think they could stop me and you if we went out there, Andy. I don't know who's playing quarterback and who's playing receiver or whatever, but
yeah, I don't know how they lost that game, or I guess I don't know. I wasn't able to watch that one this past weekend, so I don't
with
have
the
no
ball
idea.
inside the 30-yard line, and you let a freshman quarterback try to throw the ball and take a shot. It wasn't like you drew up a screen or something quick, and it like they let him back, try to make a decision. He threw it. I think there's like 3 minutes left, and they're down a point. And so I get it. College kickers, you probably you don't want to sit there and live or die by college kickers. Probably doesn't go super well all the time. But yeah, they didn't really give themselves a chance there, and so that kind of ends the old Big 12 chances for Texas Tech. They just about eliminated, barring a miracle. So it was fun while it lasted, though. And then I will also say my SMU to the playoff pick took a big hit weekend before last when RJ Maryland, their star tight end, was announced that he is out for the year. So the two plays I was feeling, so I had Tech. I mean, in my bracket, Tech was a 4 seed because of winning the conference, getting a top 4 seed, and I had SMU in there, and it's getting pretty dark out there, but time will tell. Any other games? I guess we talked about A&M, South Carolina. We've talked about. Do you think Michigan can hang with Oregon whatsoever?
I feel like Oregon is another team similar to Miami that's also due for a humbling as well. I just don't know if it's going to be against this Michigan team. They're kind of battered up, and their offense has nothing going for them right now. They still have a solid defense, but they're clearly a shell of the team that they were last year. And Oregon's kind of clicking on all cylinders right now. And I don't know, like the travel from Oregon to Michigan, like, is that even going to play a part in this? I don't think this is the game that's going to catch Oregon. I don't know. What do you think?
I just have, I don't know, some inclination that Michigan gets in there and pushes Oregon around for a little bit in that game. I like them to get inside the 15.5. I almost made this a play, almost made it in. Definitely wanted to talk about it a little bit. Like Durag says, I'm trying to put your comment here. I don't know if you can see it, Durag, but yeah, that offense is awful. And so that's why it's not officially on the card. I just think their style of play, it might give Oregon some fits. I'm not calling Oregon finesse. I've seen that word thrown around regarding Oregon. I don't think that's the case. But I do think that it's the best defense that Oregon has seen outside of obviously Ohio State, who they did play pretty dang good against. Ohio State also helped them out a lot in that game. So we'll see. I mean, I would love for Michigan to get in there and surprise the Ducks just because it seems like there are more undefeated teams and one-loss teams with easier paths than I wish they had. It's still around. I want my team to make the playoffs. So Oregon's fun to watch, but I kind of feel like Michigan hangs around here. But like I said,
Yeah, it would be huge for my Ashton Genty Heisman bet if Michigan upsets Oregon or makes Dylan Gabriel look really bad this weekend, because Dylan Gabriel is currently the Heisman favorite for whatever reason. And also if Duke upsets Miami, because Cam Ward's up there too. So if Duke and Michigan could really come out for me this weekend, that would be great, because Boise State's playing San Diego State this weekend, who has a terrible defense, and Ashton Genty is primed for 3 touchdown games. So I would love to see that. I would love to see Michigan hang tough, maybe pick off Dylan Gabriel a couple times.
Will Johnson, we're talking to you, buddy. Step out in front of a couple of Dylan Gabriel passes. Run them back if you want. It's tough for Ashton. He didn't have the greatest game by his standards last weekend. He still ran for over 125 yards, but
and a touchdown. He should have had 2. One got called back because of a holding. Whatever.
Cam Ward, I think Duke. We're trusting Duke. Obviously, that's one of our plays. Trusting in Duke to make a couple plays against Cam Ward, but it stinks for Ashton. Luckily, he does have a bad San Diego State defense that he tore up last year. I think he had like 185 and a couple scores. So a big game like that, maybe 3 touchdowns, it gets him back up there. It made me a little sad when I saw the odds and he dropped down a little bit. I want him to win it so much more than I do Cam or Dylan. I like Cam Ward a lot.
It's very odd. There's like no national media talking about Dylan Gabriel in a Heisman race or anything. So it's very odd to me that he's a Heisman favorite. I get it right now because he's a quarterback for the #1 team in the country. So, let's go Michigan this weekend. I'd love to see that kind of upset.
Should be a fun game at least. A lot of yellow in the crowd, Ducks and Wolverines. Cool. I don't know. There's certain brands when they play. I don't know. Oregon's cool. I've always
uniform matchup. You like the uniform matchup this weekend?
I don't even know what it is as far as I don't know if Michigan will wear their big game blues that did work very well when Texas came to town, but they did beat USC in them. And obviously we have no clue what to wear unless they posted that, but I don't follow all of the Oregon Ducks accounts to know. Matt, we got one more year before Dylan Raiola's 2 or 3 straight Heisman, so I appreciate you and your Husker buddies letting us have fun and check out a good Heisman before your guy takes over. But
I will say I'll be okay if Cam Ward wins it. I will not be very happy with the media if they let Dylan Gabriel win it.
Mike, can you see the Twitter comments that are popping up as well at the X under your avatar? But I'm hoping that y'all can all see them. I don't know why it's been a thing the last couple of days. Only the Twitter comments are not popping up when we post them. But obviously Dylan Gabriel beat us last year. I don't have any love for Dylan Gabriel. I think I was a good player. I liked him a little bit at UCF. Good, all good. I liked him a little bit at UCF. Didn't like him any at Oklahoma. And then he goes to Oregon, and I like one of their receivers, Evan Stewart, more than I like almost any football players. And so I'm like, oh, well, I got to root for Dylan a little bit. So he's throwing to my guy. So, okay. So they can't see Twitter, but Twitter can see their own. All right. Gotcha. All right, Brandie, any other games, anything else you'd like to go over, talk about, bring up, ask before we get you out of here?
Well, I don't think so.
Once again, guys, it's a bounce back week for us. We're 35-34 overall after 2 horrendous weeks. So don't give up on us yet. We talked about our plays a little bit more this week. You got to have some pride, but at the same time, variance is real. I don't even know what I said. No idea what I said. But Durag, we've only followed each other for like 2 weeks, so I was probably already pretty low. I know you and Lang are big buddies. But man, I just have to say that like they've been talking with their chest on Twitter. We're 1 month and or just under 1 month away now for Texas and A&M play. That week is going to be spicy on Twitter. Oh, okay. Yeah, I love Evan Stewart. GOAT.
Heck no, I'm not saying those words. Ever.
Oh, man.
I'm actually wearing a Texas shirt today that Reagan brought me this past weekend, but it's a Texas basketball shirt.
The boys are
Pretty
going to
cool.
cook this year, Brandie, so that's a
I like
great shirt
it.
to have. I did see that you had Auburn losing in Austin this year when you guys come over here to play basketball.
I do.
I like your team
I
too.
do.
I was like,
I think Trey Johnson, is the best freshman in the
if
conference.
we can make all this talent work together, it's a fun blend of talent. I'll say that. Brandie will never say Gingham, okay? She signed a contract when she joined this show. She will never, she is not contractually allowed to say Gingham. Brandie,
No, I do not know him, thankfully. He scares me.
Roll Tide Willie put the curse on the Tide this year. Gage, I hope so, man.
Look, I'm not predicting that, but I do think you guys are going to be better than what some people think.
Well,
SEC is like not as tough as Big 12 basketball, so
that's tough because the Big 12 is deeper, but y'all might have, or the SEC might have more top end talent. I don't know. That's tough. I don't care, Durag. It doesn't matter how long she's not going to say it.
Also, Gage, now that Vandy Texas game is over, look, Vandy covered at home and played a pretty close game against you guys. Remember the beginning of the season when I was like, don't sleep on Vandy when you go to play them there.
What a weird game. That second half, yeah, like everything we did, it felt like, we were moving backwards via penalty. Another interception leading to a short field. I was getting pretty worried there for a second. Are you referencing basketball or football, Gage? I'm assuming basketball.
Definitely a basketball reference there.
I mean, Brandie, we were in the Big 12 from 1996 to 2024, and I can remember winning at Kansas twice. And we played. I mean, we were playing there every single year for at least a decade during that time. It wasn't like, once every 2 or 3 years. Like, they owned us. I hate that place so much.
Get ready to hate Rupp Arena.
I already hate Rupp Arena. I wasn't a Cal guy. I know he's obviously not there anymore, but I do like Pope a little more. Dude, I guess what, during every game, brother, we could be playing lacrosse, and which we don't have a program. Okay, don't troll me.
Look, I will be betting Texas basketball to open this season next week against Ohio State. I think they're 2.5 or 3.5 point favorite.
Because expletive Ohio State. That's how I feel.
Ohio State's going to be a little bit better than they were last year in basketball. So, but I think Texas cooks.
Curious to see what it looks like. So. Said a couple transfer pieces. Trey Johnson. There's a lot of talent. I'm a basketball guy first, just barely, and I have started to. It's that time of the year where, yes, it's still football season, but I can hear the basketballs bouncing in the back of my mind, and I'm starting to get real excited about what we could put out there. Durag, Umlang owns you, brother. I'm just letting you know. No, y'all should come. You should come on when it comes on. Y'all can argue on the channel. Jesus Christ. Why did I post this? That was a horrible. I should have read your comment before I posted it. Yeah, I was thinking the other day, I was like, man, like, if we would have lost to Kansas, like, just 5 years, it doesn't, can see you, Ingrid. Hello. It doesn't feel as bad, obviously, losing to Kansas, but very good. Thank y'all for being on it regarding the comments. Baseball, the better sport? I don't know. Brandie, do you like baseball more than basketball? I don't think you do.
No, I definitely like basketball the most.
Have been one World Series, so I do hope New York rallies and wins in 7 games just because it's high drama. Would be hilarious. And anybody but the Astros, obviously. I'm cool with it. But yeah, so Texas basketball, Brandie, I think Gage is ready to wager, finishes higher than Auburn in the SEC standings. If he doesn't make that wager with you, I will. We can find something fun to do. But guys, appreciate y'all being here. Throw a like on this video for Brandie. She's a great co-host of this segment. And once again, we'll read through the plays one more time for anyone that doesn't have them. We've got Brandie with Clemson minus 10.5, Duke plus 20.5, Navy minus 11.5, Memphis minus 7.5, and Florida plus 16.5. My 4, North Carolina minus 2.5, Washington plus 3, South Carolina money line, and Minnesota -3. You too, Durag. Have a good night. Gage, I've already forgotten what I was just hating on you about, buddy. But sorry about that. Throw a like on the video if you have not subscribed. Please do so. We'll be back tomorrow night. Mike, cheers.